Whew. Oh, hi there. Sorry about all the smoke, I'm not the best baker. What am I baking? Don't you know what season it is? Santa is reportedly coming to town, and I want to have the best cookies possible ready for him. I owe him for all he's given me throughout the years, and for all the things I asked for this year too. And I know the perfect game to help me learn how to bake. There's nothing quite like a nice, simple, retro puzzle game. While undoubtedly simpler than other games, that simplicity makes it the perfect game to play with someone no matter who they are. No matter their age, gaming preferences, or gaming experience, tell them to match some colors and they're bound to get the hang of it. Everyone has their favorite game in the genre. Tetris is one of the biggest video games in the world and is available on dang near anything with a screen. Puyo Puyo is a guaranteed good time. Dr. Mario is a game you could never get sick of. Panel de Pon / Tetris Attack / Puzzle League has as many fans as it does names. Columns is quite a hidden gem, but my favorite little puzzle game is a sweet little title called Yoshi's Cookie. So, once upon a time, there was this company called Home Data. Home Data made an arcade game called Hermetica. Before releasing the game publicly, they put a single arcade out in public to get feedback. Unfortunately, reception was very critical, which led to Home Data selling the rights to Hermetica to Bulletproof Software. Bulletproof Software, now with the rights, developed a Super Nintendo version of Hermetica and showed it off at the Consumer Electronics Show. This caught the eyes of Nintendo, and they and Bulletproof Software came to an agreement to redesign the game and release it on the NES, Game Boy, and the Super Nintendo. The main thing that needed to be redone were the visuals. Hermetica had bland colored visuals that were reportedly alchemy themed. Like many other times when Nintendo didn't know what to do with the visual design of a game, they just threw in Mario characters. One thing led to another, and we got Yoshi's Cookie. There are a handful of different versions of the game. The first to be released were the NES and Game Boy versions, both of which released the same day, no matter which region. Let's start with the NES version because it's probably the most iconic. It's one of the few NES games I own in the box, and it looks nice. One of the easier NES games to find in the box. This NES version was released after the Super Nintendo had been out for a few years, just like some other puzzle games. The title screen gives us two options: one player and versus mode. Starting with the one player mode, that's what I think of when I hear Yoshi's Cookie. There are grid-like rows of various cookies that you can move around. You must move a whole row of cookies either vertically or horizontally. You can't just move one cookie to the right, the whole row is moving with it. The one on the very end just teleports to the other side. If you align a whole row of cookies either vertically or horizontally of the same type of cookie, they disappear, and you get points. The goal of the single player levels is to clear all cookies by clearing rows. More cookies will come down over time if you run out of ways to make clears. If you take too long to make a match, more cookies will pile up, and if too many end up on screen, you lose. You can set different speeds for how fast the cookies fall: slow, normal, and fast. You can also pick what level you start at and which music track you want to listen to as you play. There's even an option for no music. I guess if you want to listen to your own songs, but there still are sound effects, so you're probably better off just muting the TV. Let's look at all the cookies. The manual gives us names for them all. The flower cookie, I believe, is meant to be the thumbprint cookie. Same with the diamond and heart cookie. The checker cookies are exactly what they sound like, but the circle cookie, I wasn't sure what they were. I thought they were like giant Cheerios. My mom thought they were everything bagels, and my cousin thought they were fudge stripes without the fudge stripes. Maybe they are donuts? Does anybody know what these are? And lastly, there are the Yoshi cookies. These act as free spaces in single player mode that can act as any other cookie. The manual refers to them as jokers. While I enjoy the single player mode, the versus mode is where it's at. You and another player go head to head to see who can win. You both are given a 5x5 board of cookies. In this mode, more cookies don't drop down because you will always have enough to make a match. You are given a timer that resets every time you clear a row. If your timer runs out, your opponent gets the win. Also, the Yoshi cookies no longer act as free spaces, but do have a unique power. If you clear a row of Yoshi cookies, you get a special effect, most of which help you. The blind effect covers the middle 9 cookies on your opponent's board, so it's hard to make clears. The panic effect shuffles your opponent's cookies for a few seconds, and the last effect moves your opponent's controls and just mirrors whatever you do. So what do you think this last effect should be called? Hypnosis, mind control, zombie? It's called Slave effect. Oh boy. Some effects just add or subtract points. I never paid enough attention to see it happen, so I don't know who gets or loses the points. The first player to 25 rows cleared wins, or the one's timer to run out loses. The first to 3 wins that round. There are plenty of options such as the speed of the timer, handicap points if 25 is too much, and the same music options as single player mode. Each player has separate difficulty settings to help anyone who keeps losing and needs a head start, but the music must obviously be the same. The presentation and graphics are very nice. The NES was notoriously very limited in the number of colors it could display on any given sprite, but even with all these restrictions, all the cookies look so tasty. Everything is bright and colorful in a way that a puzzle game should be. The animations are also great. Not only do you have Mario in his little chef outfit helping you arrange your cookies, I love how full of anguish he looks when you lose. There are also these little animations between levels of Mario and Yoshi doing little slapstick skits. While releasing a game this late into a system's life can be risky, you at least have the silver lining that you're bound to really understand how to utilize the hardware. Speaking of utilizing the hardware, dang does this have some great music. The various jingles in the versus mode especially always stick with me. If you couldn't tell, I adore this game. I can barely say a bad thing about it. The only thing I would add is the ability to play versus mode against the CPU, but like, no big deal. Sure, it doesn't have that much variety, but the standard Yoshi's Cookie gameplay is always fun no matter how you slice it. I think there are plenty of levels to leave someone satisfied, but even if you were able to clear all of them very quickly, but there are so many ways to beat any given level that there's still replayability. The average price for a loose cartridge is less than $10, and a complete in-box copy's average price is less than $30. I would easily recommend it to anyone looking for a simple puzzle game on the NES. I think the Washington Post summed it up best with the quote, "Give Yoshi's Cookie a taste test." This NES version was for sale on another console, but more on that later. Bake for 15 minutes at 350 Fahrenheit. I don't have that type of time. Wait. According to my calculations, I can just bake for 1 minute at 5,250 degrees. What could possibly go... Releasing the same day was the Game Boy version. This game is extremely similar to the NES version, but there are a few small changes. The levels are different, I think, but like, who remembers the layouts of these levels? It's like having a favorite Sudoku puzzle. Instead of just Mario pulling levers, Yoshi helps out as well. Most of the changes lie in the versus mode. Not only can you play against a CPU, but thanks to the Game Boy link cable and the 4-way adapter, you can play with up to 4 players in versus mode. It does require a lot of junk to set up, but it sounds like a blast. You can even put in a short 3-character name for your player. There are 4 playable characters you can pick: Yoshi, Mario, Princess Peach, and Bowser. All the characters have different stats. Mario is the most well-rounded, while Bowser has the highest offense for effects but has the shortest timer, etc. But no matter who you pick, if you're playing against a CPU, watch out, they do not play around. This game is even better than the NES version. A quick puzzle game with plenty of levels and different modes is perfect for the portability of the Game Boy. I would totally play this on a long road trip. The average price of a loose cartridge is only $10.50, and even a complete in-box copy isn't too much either. Another bonus is the numerous ways to play the cartridge. NES cartridges only work on an NES or some unofficial system. Game Boy cartridges can be played on the Game Boy Color, Game Boy Light, Game Boy Advance, Super Game Boy, the Game Boy Player, and of course an unofficial system. While the NES version is nearly just as great, I highly recommend the Game Boy version. Yeah. Oh no. Releasing only 3 months after the NES and Game Boy versions, the Super Nintendo version came out. This version wasn't even developed or published by Nintendo, and instead Bulletproof Software. You can tell because of the purple stripe on the cartridge. Nintendo published games have a red stripe, third-party published games have a purple stripe, and Nintendo Select games have a gold stripe. That is why it's never been re-released, because it would require licensing agreements from both Bulletproof Software and Nintendo. I'm sure it could be re-released someday, but I would bet the NES and Game Boy ones would come first. On to the actual game, it lives up to the quality of its predecessors. It's a mix of the best qualities of the first 2 games. The big colorful graphics of the NES version were most of the improvements to the versus mode of the Game Boy version, only missing the 4-player option. But the versus mode does have a new feature to make up for it. If you beat all the CPU characters, you unlock palette swap versions of the characters to go up against. Mario's new colors resemble Luigi, specifically Fire Luigi, or the original Luigi sprite. Yoshi is now a red red Yoshi, Peach wears a light blue dress that reminds me of the sprite from NES Open Tournament Golf, and Bowser has a blue palette swap referencing his brother. You've never heard of Bowser's brother? Haven't you played level 4 of World 8 of Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, his only appearance? Not including Smash Ults? The biggest addition is a new mode, Puzzle Mode. This mode involves clearing complete levels with a limited number of moves. This requires a lot more of strategy and intellect to solve. These can be very tricky. I could barely solve some of the easier ones. There are plenty of levels, almost as many as the standard mode. I personally don't really care for these puzzle levels, but I can't complain about them. More variety is always great. And there's plenty of normal Yoshi's Cookie stuff to enjoy. Moving from 8-bit to 16-bit, the graphics and music received quite the upgrade. What once were plain colored backgrounds now have detailed backdrops resembling levels from Super Mario World. The little cutscenes in between levels now have so much more animation injected into them. The flower cookies now have orange frosting and the diamond cookies are green. The Versus mode opens with a roaring stadium to really hype you up. And you all know Yoshi's iconic catchphrase of his own name. Well, do you know where that started? And this Super Nintendo version is where. For a game not even made by Nintendo, they really captured the Mario look. This is another easy recommendation. I think this is the second best version of the game after the Game Boy version. The average price of a loose cartridge is around $17, which I think is reasonable for the quality of the game. If you're looking for variety specifically, this is your best option. The complete in-box version isn't too bad either, with the average price being around $54. But if you're looking for something a little rarer, might I recommend Yoshi no Cookie Kuropan Oven de Cookie. This was an edited version of the Super Famicom version of Yoshi's Cookie that could be hooked up to an oven, and the game would teach you how to make the cookies from the game. Only 500 copies were made, and along with the ovens being quite rare, these cartridges can be quite expensive and hard to find. They are so rare, I can't even find an average price, but a lot of the numbers are in the quadruple digits. The fact that a game connects to an oven is insane. The final Yoshi's Cookie game is quite the hidden gem. Japan got an exclusive GameCube game called Nintendo Puzzle Collection, which was a bundle of Dr. Mario, Panel de Pon, and of course, Yoshi's Cookie. While the Dr. Mario game was just an emulated version of Dr. Mario 64, and the Panel de Pon game was essentially a reskin of Pokemon Puzzle League on the N64, the Yoshi's Cookie game was a completely new version of the game. While it is a brand new version of the game, it's very derivative of its predecessors, but for a puzzle game, that's alright and expected. There are plenty of new things, new cutscenes between levels, new backgrounds based off Yoshi's Island, and the 4-player versus mode from the Game Boy version returns. A whole new mode is here in the form of Story Mode. This is a 7-stage saga about beating various Mario enemies and finally beating Bowser to get back the cookies he stole from you. Nearly all the enemies are from Super Mario World, including some of the obscure ones. Anyone remember Eerie? Bowser's Castle even has Exor from Super Mario RPG sticking out. With a new system, we will get new graphics, and they are fantastic. Everything looks like it was drawn with crayons and colored pencils, like a more advanced version of Yoshi's Island. The way Yoshi is drawn resembles how he looked at official art for Super Mario World, and Bowser looks nearly identical to his original Mario art. The expressions the characters express, depending on how they do in the puzzles, are incredible. The music has once again been upgraded, and man is it pleasant. But if you missed the old pixel art, if you have a Game Boy Advance link cable, you can play an edited, emulated version of Dr. Mario and Yoshi's Cookie on the NES. There is no versus mode option in this version, but still an awesome bonus. Okay, finally done with the cookies, let's get the milk. This reeks. When did this expire? Oh my gosh! July 13th, 2018? That's the day the 3DS port of Captain Toad Treasure Tracker came out. Unfortunately, this seems to be the end of our Yoshi's Cookie adventure. The Wii's Virtual Console got the NES version, the 3DS never got the Game Boy one, and the Wii U never got the NES version, despite it being in a trailer for the Virtual Console on Wii U. So how come there was only one re-release? I could think of a few reasons. The biggest being the licensing with the rights. Bulletproof Software still owns a good chunk of the games, specifically the SNES one. While it is probably very doable, they probably just don't see the game as a high priority. Another reason would be, again, the poor name of that one effect. I can imagine it could be upsetting for some people playing a cute Yoshi game and unsuspectedly stumbling upon that word. Nintendo is no stranger to hiding their more controversial games, so that could be a contributing factor. And lastly, people just might not care about the game that much. It might not cause that much buzz bringing it back, so they don't bother. Plus, people might just confuse it with the game Yoshi, even though Yoshi's Cookie is infinitely better. It's unfortunate, but it's just the way the cookie crumbles. But even if there hasn't been a new game, let alone a port, Yoshi's Cookie is far from forgotten by Nintendo. This small puzzle game has snuck its way into countless games, even more than just Mario. In Yoshi's Woolly World, there's a whole level dedicated to the game, as well as a whole battle track mode in Mario Kart Double Dash. Tetris DS features several NES games, and the Star Puzzle mode is that system's Yoshi's Cookie. In the Game & Watch Gallery series, the games Egg and Mario's Cement Factory have those delicious cookies that we know and love. It is kinda gross to eat cookies made in a cement factory. Super Mario Odyssey and Mario Kart Tour's chef outfit for Mario is taken directly from the game. Patissiere Peach from Princess Peach Showtime is seen baking with those famous cookies, and Pikmin 4 features all 6 of the cookies as treasures. With how perfect these cookie designs are, it just makes sense to sneak them in wherever they can. Whew! There. Done. Took 7 hours and 2 calls from the fire department, but I did it. What's that? Why did I go through all this effort to bake Santa some cookies? A lot of gratitude. Santa's given me so many special memories, and I never even got to say thank you. The holidays wouldn't be special without him. Well, actually, maybe that's not true. I'd still have my family and friends. My favorite thing about Yoshi's Cookie is the way it bonds me with my family and friends. It's such a simple concept with an adorable presentation that nearly anyone can play it. That's why the Versus mode is always such a big focus. It's what most people are playing for. Whether it's playing with my mom, brothers, or my friends, we all find some joy in it. Video games have gotten a lot more complicated as time goes on, and I completely understand it's not for everyone, but it's just so nice when I get to share my geeky little passion with the people I love. I don't love the game the way I love Earthbound, Omori, or Pikmin 2. Yoshi's Cookie doesn't have a life-changing story, unique world building, or a giant world to explore, but what it does have is a fun way for me and my mom to bond and de-stress. Can't do that with Eternal Darkness Sanity's Requiem. Yoshi's Cookie, just like real cookies, are best shared. Remember to thank the ones who make your life better while you still can. Those people are what make the holidays truly special. I probably have time to bake them some more. And hey, if things go bad, I can finally fill out my fire department punch card.